lines which I thought was important. Uh, I want to now go into the discussion of the topics, because we have by now a kind of a hang of the text, and I am hopeful that if not all of you, many of you have read the text to at least to some extent. So I think, could somebody tell me what was the last thing that we were doing, which was the um, last, which were the last lines that we had done? Because
Sir,
yeah,
276, line number 276 up to worthiest deeds.
okay, line number 276 up to worthiest deeds, and that was Samson's dialogue. Let's move on to the discussion of at least one or two questions. Meanwhile, what I would request you guys to do is to read the text on your own, because as I told you earlier, it will not be possible for us even to discuss the important lines, because this is a big text, this is a lengthy one, and we will find it difficult as far as time is concerned to complete it. So what I will do is I will go into the discussion of maybe two questions, and then maybe we can come back to the text with, if you have any queries from the text, we can go there. But I think it will be more fruitful if we go directly into the discussion of the questions. But if any one of you has have any other ideas, you can always share it with me. Like, you want to continue with the text, I mean, continue with the text in the sense that we can only do the more important parts. However, I did think of giving you the entire uh, giving you the number of places, pointing out the number of places where I think something is important. But at this point in time, I don't know if I will be able to tell you which lines are more important than others. I will request you to read the text in its entirety, but I will try to give you those lines, highlight those lines for you from the book, which I think is important for you to create your answers, or I think is important for the topics that we were discussing in the class. So I will be mentioning the topics that we had discussed, or I promised that I would be discussing with you guys. Let me know if there is anything that I am missing. Okay, so the first topic that I mentioned to you in the class was uh, Christian, Greek, and Renaissance elements, or Christian, classical, and Renaissance elements. That Samson Agonistes is a compilation of all these influences. Was this a topic? Somebody please confirm.
Yes, sir. This is the
Oh,
first topic.
okay, so this was the first topic. All right, so now let us go into this. Now, Christian, Greco-Roman, or classical, and Renaissance elements. These elements, these so-called elements, belong to different periods of time, as you can understand, but there are places where they overlap. Christian, Renaissance, classical, all these elements have their overlappings, and um, Samson Agonistes is a text where all these things are found sometimes working together in tandem, and sometimes they are found to be at loggerheads, because all of these aspects of Christian uh, worldview and the classical style or classical worldview, Renaissance style, Renaissance worldview, they might all clash together because some of their elements, they have something inside them which are mutually contradictory. Not always, but sometimes they are mutually contradictory. Now, two things might be of help here. Two things might be worthy of our notice here. First, that um, uh, it was George Bernard Shaw who was saying in his preface to Place Pleasant that contrary states or contrary things often create a sense of drama. No conflict, no drama, he said. No, and Blake was also of the opinion that without contrary there will be no progress. He was referring to the twin states of consciousness as far as the tiger and the lamb went. So here we have a kind of a tripartite contradictory consciousness working together in the text, and it only shows the strength of Milton that he could work with such diverse elements as Christian temperament or Christian worldview, because he was a Christian, he was a stout, he was a devout Christian. He was also working with classical elements, which was of course pagan according to the Christian theologians or the Christian writers, and Renaissance, which was a kind of a fallout of the rediscovery of the ancient classical texts and knowledge. So this is how these things are related, and this is how, and they are diverse also. So I need to tell you why or how, in what aspects is Christian classical and Renaissance elements at loggerheads. How can be, how are they contrary sometimes to each other? Could somebody tell me as to how they are contrary? Anyone? That what is the contrariness between, say, Christian worldview or Christian temperament and say classical worldview, whatever classical worldview was, and its style or temperament? It's a very basic difference. It's a very easy thing to put your finger on. Anyone? No volunteers? Okay, so I will pick people from you to, like, maybe try. Okay, Anindita Soren, do you wish to try this? Anindita?
Sir, I have no idea.
You have no idea. Okay, but it's a very I would say that it's out there. It's, you just have to point it out. It's really very simple. The differences between, say, Christian and classical worldviews. But okay, no problem. Anindita, maybe Arnab, would you like to try? Arnab Shaha?
No, sir.
You don't want to try? Anybody wants to try this? No? No one? Okay, so that is one of the perks of studying online. I can't really hound you to, uh, hazard a guess. But anyway, so you see, it's very simple. Christianity believed in one single God, right? And classical people, Roman or Greek, both were classical, they believed in multitudes of gods. They had a pantheon of gods. There was not just one god, but there were a number of gods. Okay, so how is that reflected in the text? Of course, Milton takes the side of the Israelites, or Milton takes the side of Samson, because Israelites also believed in like one single god, and as opposed to the Palestinians who believed in a number of gods, which we have seen in the text also, because there is this one god who is being referred, who might be from the seas or something like that, half fish, half god, half human. So that is one basic difference, and that is how it is played out in the text. Secondly, it is also reflected in the fact that Samson alone brings the destruction of the Palestinian chiefs. So he is like this one person, one um, savior for the Israelites, because we have discussed about this, we have talked about this in the class, that Samson is a single person, Samson is a single warrior or champion. Why did not the Israelites have an army of their own? Why were they dependent only on this single person, single warrior, single savior, Samson? Because I believe that these Christian people were of the opinion that single God, monotheistic principles matters. Okay, so that is one way in which we can interpret the the cult of the hero worship, or the image of Samson as the savior. As far as the classical elements concerned, it's not so much about the theological or religious worldview that matters here, but what matters here is the style. Samson Agonistes is written in the form of poetic drama or dramatic poem, as we have discussed earlier. And in this poem, this is the format in which ancient Greek and Roman plays were written. They were written in the poetic format, and there was a use of chorus as well. If you have seen that in modern drama, in modern age, we hardly have any kind of chorus. I mean, a chorus is a system that has been outdated since a long time. But in this play, which is based on the model of classical plays, we find that there is um, a chorus, and the chorus is also a chorus plays an important role in this text, telling the audience as to what has happened earlier and what will happen next in the play. So there it is. But can somebody point out to me the Renaissance element as far as the character of or the role of Samson is concerned? What is the Renaissance element, and what is this idea about Renaissance? Anyone? What is the, how can we consider Renaissance to be a separate element altogether? Volunteers who would like to answer this. How is it related with the character of Samson? Ongira, would you like to try?
So, individualism.
Individualism, okay, and how does it
Sir,
play out?
it's based on the one character, and focus the one character, and uh, the story is around that individual protagonist.
Okay, would somebody like to improve upon it? Ongira is right that Renaissance is famous for its emphasis on individualism. It is here where we have heard the idea that the character, sorry, is destiny. Though it was mentioned by a particular writer who did say this particular thing about uh, uh, Shakespeare's characters and Shakespeare's plays. But any improvement, like could we be more specific from the examples that we have read from the text? That how does Samson exemplify this individualism? Though the play is truly about Samson Agonistes, the name of the play is Samson Agonistes, and we are only we are only seeing how Samson is in agony and how he um, fell for a trap, how he was powerful and how he regained his strength in darkness, and how he redeemed himself. That is all very correct. But as far as the character of Samson goes, is there any Renaissance element present here? There was a internal conflict going on in Samson's mind a few lines earlier when he was delivering a monologue. He was going through some kind of an internal conflict, and I think there was some clue to this Renaissance element thing um, in
So
yeah.
psychological conflict or dilemma in between his own character, like
What was the conflict about? What were the conflicting sides?
so his strength, which he was losing.
Yeah, okay, he lost his strength, but what was the conflict about? What were the conflicting sides?
So
Anyone?
the conflict
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
uh, so the conflict was that between that if it is the fault of God or
Hmm.
of him, because
Right.
God give his all strength in his hair, which
Mm-hmm.
is basically so fragile. But
Mm-hmm.
he also, being a hero,
Mm-hmm.
he also believed a woman and lost his all strength.
Hmm.
So this is the conflict.
Yes, very good. And it's mentioned in line number 40, uh, 41, 42, 43, 44. In line number 44, if you can turn your pages to 44, he says that um, had been fulfilled, but through mine own default. So he is taking, he is agreeing to his own faults, but he was also uh, asking this question. He was also doubting the agency of God earlier. That um, you know, as of a person separate to God. So with this heaven gifted strength, so he was doubting the purpose of God earlier in a few lines earlier, but then he also questioned his own agency in the in his own downfall and in the downfall of the Israelites. So herein comes the question of individualism, or herein comes the question of human agency. If you have read about Renaissance earlier, or you know that the thing that happened during the Renaissance was that the the worldview as such shifted from theocentrism to homocentrism. Can somebody tell me what is the meaning of these words?
Yes, sir.
Yes, try.
Theocentrism was the worldview pre-Renaissance concept,
Mm-hmm.
and in Renaissance it was homocentrism.
Mm-hmm.
Homocentrism means based on one character or based on human attitude, like what he is doing, and he is the own. He is responsible for his own work. And
Mm-hmm.
the theocentrism was the god means everything which is going is
Mm-hmm.
good or bad, responsibility all of the god.
Right, very correct. So, theocentrism was a worldview that was prior to the Renaissance in Europe, where it was said that everything is the will of God. Whatever is happening because the God has willed it. However, in Renaissance and post Renaissance, we realized, or sorry, the Europeans realized that it is not God who is responsible for all the good and all the bad in the world. It is actually the people. As you sow, so you reap is something that drives the Renaissance individualism. And Samson is a Renaissance character, Milton is a Renaissance character, because they take the fall for the mistakes that they have made. They are conscious, they are not fatalists. They realize that it was their mistake that led to their downfall. It was not fate, it was not God, it was not some unknown agency which people cannot see or understand, but it was the fault of the person himself that 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 we are found in a sticky position. Okay, so let us have a look at the Greek elements in the play here. So, what is the most conscious Greek element? The most conspicuous Greek element is the form of the play, as I already pointed out. So that's point number one. Then what are the minute points, or what are the aspects of this ancient form of drama, or this poetic drama? So you have the prologue. The prologue goes on from the first line to line number 144, which is actually Samson's soliloquy. Okay, so in Greek plays you have the prologue. In many other classical plays you also have the prologue. So prologue is a kind of a constant feature of Greek plays, classical plays, and Milton uses this feature here. Then there is the parode. Parode is a part of the play. So there are number of parts of these classical dramas, prologue being one, and then there is the parode, 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 which is from line number 145 to line number 175, and this is the whole statement of the chorus. The chorus is functioning as the parode of the play. So this is a section of the play, parode. Then it is divided, like the play, this kind of a play, this kind of a poetic drama can also be found divided into various episodes. Okay, so the first episode is the dialogue, or the uh, alternating monologues, or alternating expressions of Samson and the chorus, that goes on from line number 176 to line 292. So that is the first episode of the play. So ancient poetic dramas were often divided into prologue, parode, episodes, stasimons. So we also find the presence of a stasimon, again another division of the Greek play. So the first stasimon continues from line 293 to 325, Then there's the second episode, and it goes on and on. Okay, so there are stasimons, there are episodes, though the parode seems to be only one. So there could be multiple episodes and there could be multiple stasimons. So stasimon is actually a kind of a filler, a kind of a intervention by the chorus. So the chorus, when the chorus intervenes and talks in between the dialogues of the characters, that it could be considered as a stasimon. And the first stasimon, just to give you an example, starts from 293 and goes on till 325. So this is the way in which the play is structured in the Greek model, and here we find the Greek element. Now, komos, or lamentation by chorus, and one of the characters in concert. So komos is a kind of a conclusion to the play, you can say. So it's what is a komos? CMMOS. Komos is a lamentation by the chorus and one of the characters in the concert or in the play, in the drama that we are observing right now. And it goes on from line number 660 to 1758, that is from 1660 to 1758. So I think our display has just so many lines. I think it ends in 758. The play comprises of 1758 lines. So I told you about the rough structure which is based on the Greek model of the play, and that is why we find a strong Greek element in the play. Okay, and then the element of chorus, as I already mentioned, that we find the active role of chorus in the play. By the time Milton was writing, the use of the chorus had declined, or the chorus did not really have a central role to play in any of the plays that were written during that time. But in this play, chorus holds an important position, and chorus was introduced, I think, by Euripides way back in the ancient Greek classical plays, and then on it became a common feature of the Greek plays, and since Milton uses this, he is using a Greek element. So what does these choric characters actually do? So they illuminate the character of Samson, they share his feelings, they enlarge upon the incidents, and they extends the thought. So this is basically what the chorus does in any play. This is what the function of a chorus should be, that it should talk about the character, it should talk about the main character, it could share the feelings of that particular character, it enlarges upon the plot, it extends the thought of the of the play, and it actually elaborates, adds, enhances. You can understand chorus to be a kind of an adjective. If you consider the play to be a noun, then the chorus can be an effective adjective. So we find it here. Now, unities. Can somebody point out what are the unities? We also discussed the same in Beggar's Opera. Tomo Jita Patro, can you try? Tomo Jita? Okay. Ritobina, would you like to try?
No, sir.
Yeah. I didn't get you, Ritobina. Were you saying something?
Sir, I don't want to try here. I like your classes.
You like the class face to face, but I mean, it's all the same. You just have to imagine me standing in front of the class, and just imagine, use your imagination. So anyone else who would like to say what are the three unities? Shobnaz, Parveen, do you want to try? Shobnaz? Okay, yeah, she replied in the text, and she says time, place, and action. So Samson Agonistes does maintain these three unities very well, because Milton, who was a Puritan by religion, perhaps was also a purist as far as Renaissance style, or as far as classical style was concerned. He, I think, believed that these three unities are of paramount importance to the play, to any play, and hence he maintains these three unities. So as far as the time is concerned, it begins at sunrise, ends at noon, um, and he, uh, he does go back in the past, but he is not physically going back to the past. He is reminiscing, he is thinking, his memory is seen here, is shown here, which cannot be considered to be breaking the time unity of time, because he does not really travel anywhere from the prison. Talking about the place, it is not um, outside the Gaza prison, and the catastrophe also happens, the climax also happens within the Gaza prison. So he does not go anywhere. And as far as the action is concerned, there is no subplot, though there are a number of episodes, and these episodes are organically connected, which was the moot point of Aristotle in his Poetics, that he really rooted for, he really cheered for not the unities of time and place, but the unity of action. He did put a lot of importance to this unity of action, with the caveat that if your play suits that you break the unity of action, then you might break the unity of action. It was not a kind of a dictatorial um, um, directive given to the wannabe playwrights. Anyway, so the action is tragic, the action is heroic. There is no funny thing happening within the action, and though there are a number of episodes which is a part of the Greek uh, tradition, these episodes are also associated very closely, logically, to one another. Organically, they are connected to each other. As a classical play, now this we come to the fourth point now. As a classical play, this play also has perfect symmetry. Like, classical plays were constructed really architecturally sound. There was hardly any loose ends within a particular play. So Milton was also a neat worker, and Milton always created these perfectly made plays. So we have this union of greatness and grace, restraint and lucidity, no half effects or confused effects of romantic drama. So it's a total effect. It's a total package of well developed, well constructed plot, because Greek dramas were also uh, very neatly done. They were very neat to begin with. There was no careless beauty as we find in romantic drama, because in the romantic plays, there were very few of them. But in the in the romantic literature, there is a lot of place for doubts and willing suspensions of disbeliefs and things like that. But in classical plays, especially in Milton's plays, there was no space for any kind of goofiness. And what happens, if you have been ever in this situation, um, since Ritobina is not happy that we are having this online thing going on, I would try to involve her more inside this particular setup. Ritobina, have you ever
No,
been?
sir, please, sir.
What?
I don't want to be that much involved.
Why not? Then you might like this thing also. Okay, fine. No pressure on anyone. So I think all of you or most of you have been in a situation in your school, especially, where there was this class monitor in the absence of a teacher. You, perhaps some of you might have been that class monitor in the absence of the teacher. Something curious takes place during that situation. Can somebody tell me what is the curious thing that happens with the class monitor when the teacher, of course, is not present? Somebody among you, usually the person who is kind of considered a bright student, is taken up to be the monitor, and something curious happens when somebody is made a monitor. What is that?
So is it like the teacher likes that particular student?
The teacher likes that particular student, but there's no curious thing about it. I mean, uh, you can like, a teacher can like a
Sir,
particular.
how he or she can handle the class or the taking the responsibility?
So what happens when this transition occurs? Like,
Sir, it's like the curious thing is uh, whom the class monitor is going to give away to the teacher and
what
whom he or
talk?
she is going to protect.
Okay, so it's like nepotism going on.
Yes, sir, kind of. It depends on the class monitor whom he or she likes.
Okay, so have one of you been a class monitor in your school? I know the school is like 4 years ago, but do you remember being a class monitor in your classes?
Yes, sir.
And what happened, Ungira?
স্যার অ্যাকচুয়ালি স্যার বাংলায় বলছি,
হ্যাঁ।
অ্যাকচুয়ালি আমাদের স্কুলে রোল ওয়াইজ মনিটর ঠিক করা হতো, মানে
ও
ফার্স্ট মান্থ রোল 1 2, সেকেন্ড মান্থ 3 4,
আচ্ছা।
আর যখন পুরোটা কমপ্লিট হয়ে যেত তখন সব থেকে বদমাইশ যে মেয়েটা তাকে মনিটর ঠিক করা হতো যাতে সে কথা বলতে না পারে। সো ইট ওয়াজ ভেরি ফানি অ্যান্ড
It's
সুইট
funny
সাওয়ার
now.
ইনসিডেন্ট।
I think it's funny now, but back then it was not so funny.
হ্যাঁ, মানে ঝামেলা তো হতোই,
হুম।
মারপিটও হতো, বাট মজাও হতো।
হ্যাঁ, of course, মজাটা হওয়াটা একটা part of school, I understand that, but the thing is that when you become a monitor or when somebody becomes a monitor, and if that person takes the job seriously, which usually happens,
Yes.
that monitor
বাকিদের
became,
রাগটা তার উপর এসেই পড়বে।
হ্যাঁ, কেন পড়বে? কারণ সে নিজেকে টিচারের থেকেও বড় মনে করে।
Yes, yes.
Because
Yes.
when people like us who are losers, I mean not all of you, me, we get power, we try to make the most of it. We need to show who is the boss. And রেনেসা যখন পেল ইংল্যান্ড বা মিল্টনের মতন লোকের, আই এম নট সেইং মিল্টন ওয়াজ আ লুজার, যদি ওর একটা বউ বোধহয় পালিয়ে গেছিল, দ্যাট ডাজ নট মেক হিম আ লুজার, বাট নো, স্টিল বউ পালিয়ে যাওয়াটা একটা it's kind of embarrassing. Anyway, I don't remember if that really happened, but one of his wives died, so that was sad. Anyway, so Milton, who got this dose of Renaissance elements and this dose of Renaissance worldview, he really liked it. And what happens when you get the taste of a new thing, you want to show that you are a pro at it. ক্লাসিক্যাল রাইটার্সদের থেকেও মিল্টন নিজেকে বড় ক্লাসিক্যাল রাইটার বলে মনে করানোর চেষ্টা করেছিল বা করতো, এবং কিছুটা সফলও হয়েছিল। বাট দিস ইজ হোয়াট হ্যাপেন্স ওয়েন ইউ গেট সামথিং নিউ, ইউ ওয়ান্ট টু ওভার ইউটিলাইজ ইট। তোমরা যারা সাইকেল শিখেছো, যখন নতুন নতুন সাইকেল শিখেছিলে তখন সারাক্ষণ সাইকেলের ওপরই থাকতে ভালোবাসতে। কেউ কেউ যারা নতুন বাইক চালানো শিখেছো, স্কুটার চালানো শিখেছো, তারা সবসময় স্কুটার চালাতে মানে ইচ্ছে করতো তোমাদের। নতুন নতুন প্রেম করলে যার সাথে প্রেম করছো তার সঙ্গে সবসময় কথা বলার ইচ্ছে হয়, and we do that a lot. So the thing is that Milton's Renaissance element, or sorry, Milton's classical element became a rather too much, because he wanted to show that he was truly the last Renaissance man. And that is what went wrong, if anything went wrong with Samson Agonistes, is that it is too tight. It is too classical to be comfortable in England in the neoclassical age. But that is just one paragraph, that is just one line that you can insert, because we are, আমাদের কেউ টাকা দেয়নি মিল্টনকে শুধু প্রেজ করতে থাকার, যে মিল্টন একজন দারুণ রাইটার ছিল, মিল্টন একজন মহান রাইটার ছিল। মিল্টনেরও কিছু প্রবলেম থাকতেই পারে, বউগুলোর ব্যাপারে কিছু বলো না, বাট we can talk about the style that, you know, he is out classifying the classicists. He is trying to do it rather too much of classicism, which is a kind of a negative point. Anyway, let's come to the fifth aspect of the Greek elements, and that is catharsis. Can somebody tell me what catharsis is? What does it signify? Catharsis. Anyone can write a word or two in the chat box also. Catharsis. You have heard of this. You know about this. What is catharsis? Like in a word or two, or maybe in a sentence. Because catharsis is there.
Kind of
Yeah.
purgation
Purgation.
of emotions.
Purgation
Involves
of emotions. Okay.
involves pity and fear.
It involves pity and fear. Yes. So we know that catharsis is the purgation of unwanted emotions, and it is the goal of tragedy according to Aristotle. And we do have catharsis in this play, because if you look at the very last line of the play, you need to go to line number 1758, where just a minute. Just look at the last line. With peace and consolation hath dismissed, and calm of mind all passion spent. So this is what is the goal of a tragedy. This is what is the goal of all tragedies according to Aristotle. That why do we want, our lives are so sad, we live a sad life, you know, that the sad spelling, or the spelling of sad in Facebook, sad life or something like that. We all live a sad life, not all, but many of us. So why do we need to go and watch another sad thing? So the simple idea was, or is, that your sadness and the sadness that you find in the play cancel each other out, and that is how the unwanted emotions of pity and fear are expunged from your psyche. Okay, that is if you see it in that way, that can be a little complicated, but just to mention that there is catharsis at the end of the play, because the element of catharsis is there in this play, will be enough to add to another point of the Greek element in the play. Okay, so next, the sixth point is this, that the catastrophe which is obscene is not shown on the stage. This was a Greek practice, that anything that will be violent, that will be gory, will not be shown on the stage, which is the direct opposite of the OTTs and the web series that we see every day. We see a lot of violence, we see a lot of bloodshed, we see a lot of sex on screen, which we are not supposed to, which was not shown on stage by the classical playwrights. Maybe it was something to do with morality, that you should not show violence because that will affect the audience. I don't know the reason. I cannot comment on the reason right now, but this is what really happened. This is what really went on on the stage of the Greek plays. That if you remember Oedipus, নিজের চোখ খুবলে দিল, but this khoblano of the choke was not shown on the stage. It happened off stage. A messenger came and informed somebody that Oedipus has taken away his own, he has taken out his own eyes, and now he is blind, and he has exiled himself again, or he has exiled himself from Thebes. So here too, in this play also, we do not see the killing of the lion or the men on the stage. We just hear it from the mouths of the chorus and Samson himself. And even when the catastrophe happens, the Milton pulls down the entire edifice upon the heads of the captors of Samson. It is also informed by a messenger. So in this sense also, Milton is maintaining the classical element, or the classical factor of the plays. There is something, there is an element, there is a thing called stichomythia. STICHOMYTHIA, stichomythia. What is this? Khaina mathay day. Let me write down the spelling of stichomythia. I hope I am pronouncing it right, but after all, this is Greek, and well, Greek is Greek to me. So stichomythia, I don't know. Whatever, this is a spelling of stichomythia or stichomythia, whatever you want to, however you want to pronounce it. What is it? It's a series of alternate speeches of one line each. So we do find this kind of an element in Samson. We have not come across these rapid answer type question answer yet, but I think it will be there somewhere. That's why I have mentioned it in this framework of answer that I created, that there is a stichomythia here, because it was something that happened in the Greek tragic dialogues also. Like, it's a kind of a repartee, like একজন একটা ডায়লগ বলছে, তারপরে আরেকজনের একটা ডায়লগ ওটাকে কাউন্টার করে বলছে, so on and so forth, এরকম ভাবে চলবে. So that is one thing. Anyway, and then there is a restriction of the number of characters. বেশি ক্যারেক্টার নেই, মানে এনশিয়েন্ট ক্লাসিক্যাল ড্রামাগুলোতেও খুব বেশি যে ক্যারেক্টার্স থাকতো তা নয়, আর এখানেও আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি যে the number of characters are restricted. There are just few characters in the play. Let's come to another point, that is, let's compare Samson with other Greek heroes. Okay, so there are 3 points of comparison here. I have tried to compare it with 3 Greek heroes, and we can find a kind of a similarity between the Greek the other Greek heroes and Samson, and let's see if they tally. So, like Prometheus, uh, Samson is showing a sense of grandeur even in sorrow. If you know about the myth of Prometheus, if you know what happened to Prometheus, well, Prometheus stole the register from the staff room and gave all the students all the attendance. No, he did not do that. He actually stole fire from heaven and gave it to the human beings who did not know how to start a fire. And look what we have done with that. And Prometheus is really pissed off that, I gave you fire to warm yourselves, to cook your food, and what you do with fire is to burn other people's houses, you burn forests, you kill animals, and so on and so forth. But anyway, let's not be critical or satirical about this, but Prometheus was punished by Zeus, and he was nailed to a mountain in the Caucasus range, and there were like furies from hell in the form of vultures who would come daily and peck at him and eat his livers and kidneys and maybe heart, which will grow back again during the night, and then the vultures would come back again. So it was a kind of a constant punishment to Prometheus, and the same punishment is given to Samson, and both Prometheus and Samson do not grovel in pain. They want to get back to their tormentors. They want to defeat their tormentors. Next comparison could be made with Hercules, because Hercules also had a huge strength, and both were defeated by women. I don't exactly know what happened to Hercules. I mean, which women defeated Hercules? Like, what happened with Hercules? I do not remember. But curiously, Hercules has her to begin with. That has nothing to do with anything, but I'm just thinking. So, and then there is Oedipus at Colonus. So, Oedipus was blind and helpless by his own error, and he was also visited by several friends. So was Samson. Samson was blind and he was helpless by his own error, and he too was visited by a number of friends, including Samson's father Manoah. Okay. Next element of Greek tragedy or Greek play is hamartia. We all know what hamartia is. Can somebody tell me what hamartia is? Just a word, and we have discussed about it. Shunanda Sao, do you want to try? Hamartia?
Downfall of character.
Well, it leads to the downfall of a character, yes.
So it is a fatal flaw of the character.
Fatal flaw of the character. Okay, tragic flaw, fatal flaw. Well, technically, hamartia simply means missing the mark. A misjudgment, a misstep, something that you did to screw your own self. Like, you made a mistake thinking that you will actually do good, and that is at the crux of tragedy. That is what tragedy is all about. Tragedy is not because you want to screw somebody up, but tragedy is about the fact that you want to try to save someone or yourself or the country or the whatever you want to save, but your actions actually hasten the downfall of yourself or some other person whom you actually want to save. So hamartia is a tragic flaw, it's an error of judgment, it's missing the mark, and that is what leads to the downfall, combined with other characters. I mean, Samson was proud about his strength. He was like, always showing his body like Salman Khan or something like that. But what actually led to his downfall was not his pride alone, but he made the mistake of believing entirely in a woman, and that was considered to be a mistake by Milton, but that is very misogynist, and that has like very anti-feminist implications. But his mistake was that he trusted somebody whom he should not have had supposed to trust. I mean, if you do not trust your wife or husband, well, I think that is the case in most of the relationships. You don't really trust your wife or husband. But if you do not trust your wife or husband or your spouse, then who do you trust? So how is Samson really wrong about it? But if your strength is so fragile, you should not really talk about your strength. So, like, if you have cheated in your exam, you should not tell even your best friend that you have cheated, because the best friend might turn an enemy someday, and he or she might rat you out. Okay, so I think that was the hamartia of Samson. Then the point of hubris. We have talked about Samson's pride, and the fact that his pride was related to his hair, which can have very funny implications as far as the Bengali language goes, you know. So well, you can laugh at it, but do not write that in your answer. But the hubris is there in Samson. He's proud. He thinks that he can do anything with his strength, but actually, in order to deflate his pride, God puts all his strength in his hair. So that element is also there. And then anachronosis. I think we have talked about anachronosis, that is discovery, the true error that you made, but it is already too late and you cannot do anything about it. I'll just write down the spelling. I don't know if, okay, gnosis. Okay, I think anagronesis. Okay, I think this is the right spelling. If you are confused about the spelling, just write discovery. Okay, discovery. So discovery is there in Samson's character. He discovers that he's at fault. As far as characterization, now that is the next point. That is, as far as the characterization is concerned, we find a Greek element here as well. In Greek plays, in many of the Greek plays, most of the characters hardly develop, and the same is happening here in this play also. Other than Samson, we do not find any character who actually develops from something to something. I mean, Samson realizes his mistakes and he says that the strength is not really in the muscles but in the mind. But the other characters like Manoah or Dalila, they don't really change. They are not there for any kind of a development. So I think what is going on here as far as the Greek elements are concerned is that, and you can conclude with this thing, that it is not in spirit Greek, but it is in format, but it is in form Greek, and it is the force of Hebraism which is dominant, like the spirit of Hebrew and Jewish and Christian ideals is what is dominant in the play. And Hellenism contrasts man with faith. So Hellenism is Greek elements. I mean, Greece is often known as a Hellenic culture. From Helen, I don't know why they are called Hellen. I don't know. Anyway, so what happens in Hellenism is that man is contrasted with fate. In Hebraism, man is God and his servants are contrasted with idols, that the Philistinian idols and their servants. So that is why it is not really completely Greek, because as far as the format is concerned, as far as the form is concerned, I think it is Greek because there are so many Greek elements there. But as far as the spirit is concerned, it is definitely not Greek, because it has it goes on in the spirit of Hebraism, which contrasts God and his servants, that is Israelites, versus idol worshippers, that is Palestinians and their and Palestinian gods and their servants. So we can go to now the Christian elements. So we can have a look at what the Christian elements are in this particular play, which could be a number of them. So the number one thing that I found Christian in the play is that the source. The source of Samson Agonistes is actually the book of Judges, chapter 13 to 16, and you can write it down. Source is, and I'm writing it down in the chat box, Judges chapter 13 to 16. Okay, so that's the source. So book of Judges is a Christian book, like it's a part of Bible, and so we find the story of Samson Agonistes in the book of Judges, chapter 13 to 16. So it's almost every element, almost every important incident in this play seems to have been taken from the biblical narrative. But the sequence has been changed, the sequence has been rearranged for obvious reasons. The language is not the same, but the narrative, the way in which the rhythm, the temperament in which it is expressed is definitely biblical. There is a lot to be learned from this particular narrative of Samson, and Bible is one of the, Bible, like any other religious texts, talks a lot about what you need to learn from a particular incident. So what do we learn from Samson? Like any moral lesson that we learn from Samson? Anyone? Moral of the story. Is there any moral of the story? Any moral whatsoever? Anyone? Ishita? Moral of the story? No, it does not have a moral. What is it about? Like we discussed it in the class. Trijit, moral of Samson Agonistes?
No idea, sir.
Sir,
Yep.
sir, we are called to live a holy life.
We are called to lead a holy life. Why do you say
So we
that?
should not depend on one person's ability, and we should always keep a backup.
Okay. All right. So rather than depending on one person, you should actually have some backup. But Zufisha, why do you say that Samson Agonistes teaches you to lead a holy life? And what do you mean by a holy life? Zufisha? What did you mean when you say that Samson teaches us to lead a holy life? What is a holy life? Okay, anyone else
Sir,
about
to
the, yeah.
Nazarite to the God.
Yeah, come again.
To Nazarite to the God.
Nazarite, I mean, you mean Jesus? So you should give your life for the God, or you should always live for the God. Okay, that's what you might think that Samson is trying to tell us. Anyone else? Any other moral that you might find from the story? Tonurima, I have never interacted with you, have I? I don't know. You all look different in your DPs.
না
Yes.
তো স্যার আপনার সাথে আমার কথা হয়েছিল মানে
কথা হয়েছিল. Okay, okay. Sorry. Because you know, I can't really see because I'm like blind like Samson, not as powerful. But what is the moral of Samson Agonistes? This is important. That's why I'm spending a lot of time on this.
স্যার লাইক উই ক্যান চুজ আওয়ার মতলব থটস বাট ফিউচার হবে সেটা তো বলা যায় না এরকম কিছু কনসিকুয়েন্সেস হবে সেটা তো পরে জানা যাবে কিন্তু আগে চুজ করার আগে ভাবা উচিত এরকম কিছু
কনসিকুয়েন্সেস কি হবে সেটা তো আমাদের কন্ট্রোলে নেই ডেফিনেটলি, বাট okay, all right, so we do not have any control over our consequences, but we should choose our actions well. Anyone else who are like less talkative? I don't know, Tomojita, Shomi, Sampurna would like to jump in and say something. Okay, so Trijit has written, though he said that he did not have any idea, he says that don't expect too much, as Samson is not killed, he is destroyed by the expectation of his own people. So, right, okay, expect from the other people about, you should not depend that your friends might come and help you out and stuff like that. Well, if you ask me,
So,
yeah.
so just a point that it's basically a tragedy.
Yes.
So where the moral, I mean, the moral of the moral of this novel lies. It's about suffering. It's about his own pride and all. Like he was backstabbed by his friends or his love, whatever. But then, where is the actual moral? We are actually learning about violence. I mean, the negative deeds of his.
So you mean to say that, like a modern text, Samson Agonistes does not really have a moral? I mean, it need not have a moral. I was trying to point out to the fact from the perspective of a Christian story, because Christian stories and biblical stories like Panchatantra and all, like our religious stories also, they have a moral at the end, right? They are fabulistic. Yes, of course, I mean, you don't need to really have a moral in a tragedy, but like we can have a moralistic standpoint on Samson as we can have a moralistic standpoint on, say, Hamlet or Macbeth also. So what was wrong with Macbeth, or what happened with Macbeth, is that, Macbeth was too ambitious. Macbeth was too impulsive. Hamlet was an overthinker. Hamlet would rather take one action after thinking 100 thoughts. Othello was the complete opposite of it. King Lear would not listen to his mind but rather to his heart and to his vanity. He was vainglorious and so on and so forth. Yes, Samson was blind not when the Palestinians took away his eyes. He was blind with pride. That was his problem. He thought that he was invincible. And I think Samson tries to tell us that if you think you're invincible today, think again. You might not be very invincible tomorrow. And Zufesha's idea that you should lead a moral life might be weaved in our response here by saying that, okay, God has given you strength for a specific purpose, and you need to carry out that specific purpose. You stick to that. Say, for example, you guys, all of you, are students, so you should stick to studies, right? And if you use your knowledge, whatever knowledge you are gaining, to you know feel proud that you are studying English honors, and you know how to speak in English, and you are quite fluent in English, and you do something, I don't know, do something with your knowledge which is not what you are supposed to do with your knowledge in general, that might lead to a problem in your life. So Samson, I don't know if Samson transgressed his limits, but he did take pride in physical strength, which is Milton, and which in general I think we are told that we should not be very proud of something that we ourselves have not generated. And even if we have generated something on our own, we should not be too proud of it. Too much pride gets noticed even by God, and God then strikes down, and it leads to the downfall. So I think this is one of the ways in which I can express as to what morality, what moral lesson we have from this tragedy. But Sampurna, you are correct that seen from the aspect of a tragedy, how can a tragedy really have a moral lesson, which is very true. Anyway, so so it's based on a biblical biblical book. Next point about Christianity is that yeah, so Samson Agonistes is really a Christian play only insofar as the audience, by an act of faith, can accept that the hero's experience of God's grace is so overwhelming as to make it unnecessary to question God's justice. Otherwise, it is as disturbing and inconclusive as the tragedies of Euripides. Now, this is not what I have said right now. This is what I think somebody called L. Potter had said. I don't know who this L. Potter is. I think he is some critic. And in my MA days, when I took down this quotation, which I found from somewhere, I don't remember it anymore, but you can find it in Google. If you Google the entire quotation, then you might find it. So Samson Agonistes is really a Christian play according to L. Potter, only insofar as the audience, by an act of faith, can accept that the hero's experience of the God's grace is so overwhelming as to make it unnecessary to question God's justice. So it depends upon the audience to accept Samson Agonistes as a Christian play or not, because if we question God's faith, if we question God's agency, as Samson did in the earlier in the beginning of the play, then it cannot be very Christian. It will be something as inconclusive as the tragedies of Euripides, because we don't know who is at fault. I mean, what was the fault of Oedipus? He was punished not because he did something wrong, but he was punished because he was at the wrong place and at the wrong time. That's it. And I personally believe, now this is my personal view that I'm sharing with you, like if you know about Thomas Hardy, or if you know about the way the determinists, there is a school of philosophers, or there is a school of people, there is a group of people who call themselves determinists or fatalists, who believe that no matter what you do, A, you are of course going to die, and B, you have no control over how you are going to die. Like, you, no matter how good, how Zufisha, how holy a life you lead, you don't know if you are going to die poorly, or if you are going to die in an accident, or if you are going to go to hell or to heaven. Because according to these fatalists and according to these people who call themselves determinists, they think that this world is illogical. I don't know who else agrees with me, but I too believe that there is no logic in the universe. I mean, anything can happen at any given time, and our good deeds and bad deeds are not really going to affect what is going to happen with us. Like, I am a bad person, and I have a lots of wrong things that I have done in my life, and that has not stopped me from enjoying maybe a life that I wanted to enjoy. Look at these. I usually take the examples of the politicians and the people who are in power. They do a lot of wrong, usually. Otherwise, how come they reach there? And yet, apparently, they live a life of comfort and respect and joy and whatever they want to do with their lives. Of course, you can say that, oh, they are not happy inside. They do not sleep well at night. I have not been to their bedrooms to see if they sleep well or not, but what I can see, so here I am an empiricist, here you can call me, a skeptical person, because I see them being in a position of power, being almost revered, and if not revered, at least feared by lots of people, and here they are involved in so many scams and stuff like that. So our actions, according to L. Potter, does not really cannot be judged in terms of good and bad, in terms of holy or unholy, in terms of moralistic or immoral things. Only if you believe, only if the audience is Christian, can the play become Christian. Okay, so that is what this L. Potter thinks. I will try to find out who this L. Potter is and try to tell you, but I don't have any clue who this person is, and in what larger context did he say this thing about Samson Agonistes. But this is an important quote, and if you want to, I can take a picture of it and send it to you guys, so that you can have a look at it. Do remind me if somebody wants it. Remind me, I will do that. Next point about this play having Christian elements is that there is the Christian concept of despair and sin and the destruction of the idolaters, because Samson at one point in time he indulges in despair, and despair is a Christian concept which says that despair is a condition in which you lose all your hope. But Samson considers that he might commit suicide and stuff like that, and he did commit suicide by killing all the enemies with him. So here it is curious that how does Milton, being a devout Christian, plays with this concept of self-destruction along with the destruction of your enemies. This is curious, and I do not know how to tackle this, because maybe you can help me, because suicide is one of the sins according to Christian, according to Bible, right? And if you commit suicide and yet you are trying to redeem yourself by killing everyone else, by killing your enemies along with yourself, then are you committing a sin or are you redeeming yourself? This is very interesting. When you see it in this way, this is very interesting part of the discussion. Anyway, we cannot go too much into this, but we can think about it. We can like write a line about it. So next point about this, the Christian element, is that what is the purpose of this work? Now chorus in the play says this: just are the ways of God and justifiable to men. Chorus says this. I don't know which lines these are because I have not written which lines these are, but I'm sure you can find it in the text. Just are the ways of God and justifiable to men. This is what the play is about. এক্ষুনি আমি যেটা বললাম যে আমি ভালো করি আর খারাপ করি, বা আমি এটা বুঝতে পারি না যে যারা ভালো করে তাদের সাথে ভালো হয় না আর যারা খারাপ করে তাদের সাথে ভালো হয়. This could be a way of God. If this is the way of God, then I don't know. I don't want to believe in, or I don't want to worship a God like this. But the more knowledgeable people or the religious people might want to say to you, might want to say to me that, you know, this is how the strange ways in which God or divinity work, that you might think that you are at the wrong end of the stick and that you are not getting what you are, what you deserve. Like you wrote a very good answer in the exam, and then you got 5 out of 10 where you expected an 8 out of 10, and you cry to God that why God, why did you not give me 3 more marks? So it's mysterious, it's problematic for us to understand as to how the entire how the entire universe works, and it's easy to call it stupid or it's easy to call it illogical. But if we try to understand as to how the universe works, is there any moral order in the universe, then it will take us a lot of time. It might take us a lot of energy. But the chorus in this play says, and this is one of the purposes of the work, to justify the ways of God to men. If you remember in Milton's Paradise Lost as well, he used the same theme to justify the ways of God to men. He is taking up a very huge project. He's trying to decode the language of God. He is trying to say, this is how, this is why God does whatever he or she does. Manoa also says, and this falls under the category of the purpose of the work, that so Dagon shall be magnified, and God besides whom is no God, compare with idols. So there is this, I don't know, I heard this idea in this movie Mission Impossible. Sorry again, Zufisha, but you know what a movie is, and Mission Impossible is quite a famous movie. And for a time being,
Sir,
yeah,
don't say sorry every time. I know, you know, I am not interested in this, but through you, I am getting some examples of this.
yeah, okay.
Then,
I mean, Zufisha, when I say sorry, I don't really mean I'm sorry. I just
oh, sir,
poke
don't
you.
say every time.
No. I poke you to watch movies actually. So this is a strange way in which the PC God works, you know. So don't be alarmed by whatever I say. Don't take things literally, you know. When it's actually a joke with me, with you, that Since you said that you're not interested, I'm using these um, popular examples because I don't know much about the texts that you read. I'll try to read as many texts as possible in near future, to give examples from religious texts as well. But at this point in time, anyway. So there is this movie called Mission Impossible, and Tom Cruise is the hero, and for a time being, I wanted to be like him. I was this in class 8 or 9 when I was young. So I liked something that was said in that movie. It was said that, the bigger the problem is, the greater will be the heroics of the hero. So in Greek mythology or in Roman mythology, I don't know which mythology these two characters belong to, there is something called a chimera, and there is a hero called Bellerophontes, which I think is from Greek mythology. Chimera is like a 100-headed dragon or a creature or something like that, and Bellerophontes is the hero who would kill Chimera. And Chimera could have been a lion or an army of people, or Chimera could have been a difficult thing to do. But Chimera was turned into a 100-headed monster in order to show that Bellerophontes is the real hero. Like, the bigger the villain, the badder the villain, the greater the hero's victory would be on that particular character. If you have ever wondered why did Darkseid or what's his name, Doomsday, these are characters from comic books, need to be so powerful, because Superman has to be more powerful than them. And this could be an explanation of all the problems in our lives. Like, we say, oh my God, why is there so much problem in my life? I am so innocent and so poor and so weak and so smaller person. Why is there so many trouble in my life? Because according to some people, the God is training you with these problems, with these hurdles, so that you become greater in your life. So that is the logic behind Manoah's dialogue, that the Palestinians worship Dagon or Dagon, and Dagon was created to show how great the real God is, because without any point of comparison we could not comprehend what God is. So the first book of Paradise Lost actually created Satan, so that we would now consider God to be really great in comparison with the great villain like Satan. Again, Samson in another dialogue says that, but will arise and his great name assert, Dagon must stoop. So the purpose of the work is very Christian. It's to show that Dagon is like Mumbai Indians in IPL season. It's nothing in front of the real God. So and it will be done through Samson. So the thought can be associated with God, but it has to be expressed by language, and this language is Samson. So and then again Samson says in another dialogue that, defy thee to the trial of mortal combat, by combat to decide whose God is God. So Samson decries or denies a combat with another champion of the Palestinians to show whose God is actual God. Because why does God need human beings to prove that God is God? Why does God need human beings to protect himself or herself or itself if God is really that great? Well, because God can prove that God is God, or God can prove that God is great automatically. It does not need Samson. And this is the realization which Samson realized when he realized that the strength of the muscle is not the ultimate strength, and the strength was given by God, it was taken away by God. And if God wants, Samson will gain back his strength, which he does at the end of the play. Curiously, I think this denying of the trial of mortal combat is a Renaissance element, because the Renaissance people also believed in demilitarization. The Renaissance people also believed in the mind over the matter. They were not brutes anymore, and they wanted to discuss, decide things with the help of the intellectual strength rather than on the strength of the muscles. So there is Christian hope also in this play, which can be regarded as the next point, that there's an element of Christian hope that things will get better and better. Manoah says this, that and from his memory inflamed their breasts to matchless valor and adventures high. So when Samson dies, Manoah tries to console himself by saying that, and from his memory, his, that is Samson's memory, inflamed their breasts, there means the Israelites' breasts, to matchless valor and adventures high. So the sacrifice of Samson has not gone down the drain. It is not a worthless sacrifice made by Samson. Samson's example will be used by the posterity, by history, to give courage to people who want to fight for their freedom next. Like we are given the example of Shahid Bhagat Singh or Chandrasekhar Azad or Subhash Chandra Bose, so that we too can have courage to fight against the wrongs that are going on in our society. So this is the Christian hope, that no life goes actually in waste. And then there is divine justice also as the sixth, as the next point. The Israelites are punished for their sins, and their divine mercy also, that Israelites have been given this champion in the form of Samson, and they are delivered from the hands of the Palestinians through Samson. Now, as the next point, as the next paragraph, as the next idea, we can take up Samson as Christ. Samson can be a reworking of the Christ image, because like Christ, Samson gave his life for his people, just like Christ did, and both their births were foretold by angels. Both had mischievous enemies, and as Samson was betrayed by Delilah, Christ was betrayed by Judas. So there are a lot of parallels between Christ and Samson. Okay, let's come to this idea about the next point that I want to discuss about the Christian element, is that according to Christianity, or according to the Christian beliefs, a tragedy is an impossibility. I mean, in Christianity, tragedy cannot happen. Why? Why do you think, if we think in terms of Christian theology, if we think in terms of Christian ideals or Bible, we cannot have a tragedy. And Shampurna, I would like to hear your views on this, because you correctly pointed out that in a tragedy you cannot have um, any morality, like any moral lessons. But why, or according to Christianity, you cannot really have a tragedy. I mean, in the Christian world, a tragedy is not going to happen. Why?
So the Christians basically follow the Bible, first of all. Secondly, they are actually religious people. I mean, they believe like they have to be really holistic, and they are always into prayers. So somewhere I guess that their belief of committing a sin is less. Like we have seen that in church, whenever someone commits sins, they go and then they say, and there's the father. The father then says it to Jesus, and there is this belief that Jesus will be, let's say, forgiving them. But when we see a tragedy, it's of course the downfall. First of all, the downfall of the tragic hero, and then they commit errors that leads them to their downfall. But in Christianity, I guess they are like they will always be doing good things so that God is happy with them. These are my beliefs.
Okay, all right. So, well, in that sense, we are, I mean, many of us are religious, and um, if we pray, if we lead a holy life in any religion, God will help us, right? God will not allow us to fall. It's not exclusive to the Christians that if they pray or if they lead a holy life, they will not fall. But yeah, I mean, what you're trying to say is makes sense, because, well, if there is really a God, and if that God is merciful, which all our religions say that, you know, God is actually very merciful. God is not um, like God is not a bad person. God is not malevolent. But in the Greek and Roman mythology, even in the Hindu mythology, the character of most of the gods, if not all, is a little uh, it depends a little on the situation you are in. Because if we take, for example, the example of God Indra in Hindu mythology, or the character of the god of Zeus in Roman mythology, in Greek mythology, Jupiter in Roman mythology, they sometimes do certain things which are not really very benevolent. They punish people. Or, for example, the form of Kali, which is, she is not a benevolent god. I mean, if you do wrong, she will come for you, or she will, like, you know, if you are a bad person, she will kill you, punish you. And even in Christianity, there is a question, there is an issue of wrath of God. But anyway, Shampurna's idea is, I will take that idea that Christian people would lead a holy life, and if you lead a holy life, then no harm will come to you, because a tragedy is something that is very antithetical to religion. Because a tragedy is something that happens because of the individual's fault, and in a religious world, an individual's actions does not really matter, because everything is in the hand of God. And if by mistake, even in a religious setting, a person does something wrong, then we will think that God has made him do the wrong thing. And if that is true, then what then Is there some hidden purpose of God in making that person do something wrong? Or is God doing it for fun? Because we have heard Gloucester say in King Lear that as flies to wanton, boys are we to the gods, they kill us for their sport. If that is the view of God, then which was the view of Roman and Greek philosophy, then in Christianity the God is benevolent. The God will always protect. The God will not allow any wrong thing to happen. And yet an innocent is killed, a king is slaughtered, a woman is raped. How? Either, even in the Christian world, there is no benevolent God who will always protect, or there cannot be no tragedy in the Christian world. Also, Christianity, like many other religions, does not believe in individualism. It believes that a single person's life is not important enough to be of interest to the rest of the people. And tragedy is always about an individual person and his life, his or her life. But in Christianity is a participative religion. You are in a group, you are in a community. You cannot have a private grief. You cannot have something called a private life, not a private life, but a kind of a private crisis, because your crisis will be a part of the crisis of the community, and the community is important, not the individual. Yet Milton, being a staunch Christian, creates such tragic characters as that of Satan or Lucifer, and Samson. So there is something interesting that goes on here. Let's now go into the Renaissance element. The Renaissance elements are few in comparison with the Christian and the Greek elements. So of course the classical form comes from learning, one of the ideals of Renaissance, and object of conforming to like the ancient Greek practice. I already told you that Renaissance brought in the knowledge of the Roman and the Greek world into Europe, into England, and this was the result of learning, and Milton was a great learned fellow. So the very structure or the very concept of Renaissance is to be found here. Then a lot of things like allusions, theology, metaphysics, harshnesses in language, technicality of words, ostentatiousness of learning, pedantry, all of the things that you found in Milton's Paradise Lost is to be found in Samson Agonistes also, which is an effect, or I would say an affect. A negative effect is an affect of the Renaissance learning. একটু বেশি শিখে ফেলেছিল, মানে একটু বেশি, যেটা আগেও আমরা আলোচনা করলাম যে Milton wanted to show how deeply he was engaged with Renaissance and its learning in Samson Agonistes also. And the Renaissance questioning of the God and the consequent isolation and the subsequent despair in man is also a very Renaissance element. রেনেসাতেই প্রথমবার ভগবানকে প্রশ্ন করা শুরু হলো যে ভগবান বলে কি আদৌ কোনো জিনিস আছে, বা ভগবান কি বেনেভোলেন্ট, না ভগবান কি কোনোভাবে আমাদের হেল্প করে, and these things. Samson also questions the agency of God, and here is in the element of the Renaissance, because when you question God, you separate yourself from a community, you become isolated, and then you despair, you feel yourself very lonely and out of hope. Next point about the Renaissance element is that yeah, because we already discussed it, that demilitarization, that Samson does not want to fight Harafa. Harafa is an antagonist in the play, and Samson says that he is not going to fight Harafa. He is not going to use his brute strength, which shows how Renaissance he is. Like, if somebody had asked Milton that, "Hey, Milton, come and box with me," Milton would have scoffed at that person and said that, "I will throw the second book of Paradise Lost at you and you'll be dead. I will not box with you." It's like, you know, somebody challenging you to a fist fight, but you deny by saying that let's come to the debating board, because we all believe that the mind is a higher faculty than the muscle is, which is a very Renaissance thing. And finally, Milton tries to say that, ultimately, as a Renaissance individual, you will be left alone. There will be no one left to back you or support you anymore. And yet there could be a dignity that could be found from this ruin of the self, being isolated by the members of the community. মানে এখানে ইসরায়েলাইটসরা স্যামসনকে হেল্প করার জন্য আর এলো না, স্যামসন একা পড়ে গেল এবং স্যামসনকে প্যালেস্টিনিয়ানসরা ধরে নিল। যেটা আগেও আমরা ক্লাসে আলোচনা করেছিলাম, যে যদি ইসরায়েলাইটসদের কাছে একটা আর্মি থাকতো, তাহলে সেই আর্মিটাকে ইউজ করে তারা স্যামসনকে বাঁচানোর চেষ্টা করতে পারতো। বাট Renaissance ideals believed in the supremacy of individualism, or the supremacy of the individual over the herds of people. Mane, Renaissance believed that mostly the population is full of foolish people, and it is only one or two persons who can really stand out from the crowd. Renaissance was not democratic in that sense. So Samson too was not democratic, of course, and Samson too stood out from the crowd. The crowd did not help Samson, but that did not affect Samson's dignity, and that actually enhanced Samson's dignity, that he said that, okay, I fought alone. It's like, the Indian cricket team in the 1990s. Everybody depended upon whether Sachin Tendulkar would play or not. Sachin out, TV closed. Things have changed a lot since then. Even Ashwin can score a half century now. So the thing is that in the 1990s, maybe the Indian cricket team had this one Renaissance man who stood out from the rest of them, not because he was himself great, but also because the other people were subpar. They were not good enough. Okay, so this is also a thing about Samson. So these are the points that you might develop into a well-rounded answer. And next class we will discuss another topic, and we will be going back and forth into the text. I will request you to read the text as thoroughly as possible, because that will help me to discuss the topics better. And now, if you have any questions, if you have any doubts, you want to talk about something, we may, because we have around 10 minutes more. Or you can not have any doubts, and we can finish this harrowing lecture now. Any doubts, any questions, anything that you would like to add to our discussion, anything? Okay, so Orchok was here. I did not see Orchok. Okay, share the quote of Potter. Yes, I will do that. I don't want to type it out entirely here. What I can do is I can take a picture and scan it and send it in the Google group. Okay, is that okay, Orchok? Okay, cool. So anything else? But do remind me, Orchok, of doing this because I will forget. Any questions? Anything that you would like to say further, or shall we call it a day?
Sir,
Yeah.
I have a question, but not not from the text or
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
Sir, as we have Dryden,
Hmm.
the whole part is not in our syllabus, no? Only the extracted part,
Yeah, I
but you
think
have gave the
yeah, just the extract. It's I think less than or it's like 200 to 250 words, so it's like really small.
250 words.
I
So, sir,
think I have provided the extract to you. I think I have given it to Shukla ma'am, and I don't know if she has shared it with you. I don't remember what happened. I can share the extract with you. You guys can just have a read at it if it is not already there with you.
স্যার তাহলে যে কোশ্চেনগুলো আপনি প্রোভাইড
Hmm.
করেছেন সেগুলো কি মানে জেনারেল কোশ্চেন ওভারঅল আমরা লিখবো নাকি ওই এক্সট্রাক্ট পার্টে যতটুকু আমাদের থাকবে সেখান থেকে আমরা লিখবো?
ইনিশিয়ালি যেটা হয়েছিল সেটা ছিল ওগুলো 10 নম্বরের হওয়ার কথা ছিল, কিন্তু অ্যাকচুয়ালি ওগুলো 5 নম্বরের হবে। ঠিক আছে, তো যেহেতু 5 নম্বরের হবে তাই জন্য সেই কোয়েশ্চেন্সগুলোতে একটুখানি কিছু চেঞ্জ মানে হলেও হতে পারে। আদারওয়াইজ ওই কোয়েশ্চেন্সগুলো ডাইরেক্টলি যদি 5 নম্বরের জন্য আসে তাই জন্য তোমাদেরকে পুরো মানে বাইরে যাওয়ার জন্য আমি বারণ করব। ওইটুকু এক্সট্র্যাক্ট থেকে যেটুকু আসছে সেইটুকু, which can be difficult if you want to um, go for critical appreciation, কারণ না মানে ক্রিটিক্যাল অ্যাপ্রিসিয়েশনও খুব একটা যে সমস্যা হবে তা না, মানে ওইটুকু জায়গার ওপরে যেটুকু ক্রিটিক্যাল অ্যাপ্রিসিয়েশন করতে পারো সেটুকু করবে, বা ওইটুকুর ওপরে যেটুকু স্টাইল তুমি বুঝতে পারলে সেইটুকুই বলবে, মানে তোমাকে ওই এক্সট্রাক্টের বাইরে থেকে কোনো আনসার করার দরকার নেই। But Ria, do you have the extracts? Like, have I shared it in the group? Like Google group?
I think no, sir.
No. Okay, alright. So I need to do that. I had given it to Shukla ma'am. I thought that she is going to do that. I'll talk to her and I'll share it in the group. Google group. Google Classroom. Anything else?
And
Okay.
sir, from
Yeah.
Samsung, we have a 20 marks question, right?
Yeah, I think so. I cannot say out of the memory, but I think so. Two 10 marks question, I think, or one 20-mark question. No, I don't know. I can't tell out of memory. You just have to see your syllabus. Okay, all right. So no more questions. Let me put an end to this